Hello and welcome to another edition of Intelligent Wrestling Talk. I am so sorry, guys. I was trying to uh, basically come back yesterday to finish off my greatest rivalries um, episode. Um, Something that one of my subscribers asked for. Um, And I want to give a shout out to all my subscribers, man. You're like great. It's cool. Thank you. You've been sending me some really nice comments recently. I really do appreciate it. One guy sent me some not so nice uh, comments, but I appreciate them as well. Look, I'm being John Cena. Like me, you know. But yeah, you can learn a lot from that guy. But yeah, thank you, and continue your comments, continue your questions that you want to ask me in terms of, I always enjoy new questions. I always enjoy talking about wrestling. It's one of my guilty pleasures, and not many of my friends seem to be that interested in it. So it's always good to have you guys to connect with and talk to. And, feel free to join the program. I've opened it up to my followers not my followers in terms of me being the cult leader, my followers on YouTube. Um, uh, yeah, who follow my channel on what I'm up to. So please, yeah, feel free to join in the conversation. I love having conversations with people about anything. Next one, I have to. I want to find out his name, the subscriber's name who asked me, because it's a really great question. Um, Next video I want to do. Yeah, I think it's Asia Extreme Infinity. I want to give out a shout to Asia Extreme Infinity. I want to give out a shout to the IWC Champion Returns. I want to give out a shout to AJPK33, one of my subscribers. Sir Williams threes, Sir Williams 3. Anyone else? Um, yeah, all cool guys. All have sent me some nice comments. And yeah, so I just want to give out a shout out to them. If I've missed anyone, I really do apologize because you've all really helped with my channel and helped me develop as a speaker on these subjects. Negative, positive comments. I'm not going to flag anything, at all. Please don't be offensive to any of my other subscribers. I'm just asking you. You can be offensive to me. Call me whatever you want to call me. Call me whatever, but do not be offensive to my subscribers because that's just uncalled for. They're just helping my channel. You know, call me whatever you want. I will not flag it. But if you start throwing racial slurs or homophobic slurs at any of the people commenting on my channel, then I have a problem because they're just commenting on the channel. They enjoy wrestling like me. Make me your focal point of abuse. You can call me anything you want. I will not flag what you say. Okay. So um, let's go onto it. These are the feuds. There's 9 feuds left of my greatest feuds that I have enjoyed personally, not objectively speaking, that I have enjoyed personally. So I'm going to go into the rest of them. So we've got CM Punk versus John Cena at number 9. One of the most annoyingly good feuds because these two guys, I mean, I rate CM Punk. Um, I find, as I said, I find some problems with CM Punk. But he was great in this feud, and there's no doubt about it. On the mic, I think CM Punk is one of those things that you learn to appreciate over time. As an older fan, as a younger fan, you're probably like, oh yeah, this guy's cool, he's so rebellious and whatever. But you learn to appreciate it over time. And CM Punk was really, really you know, he had his finger on the pulse of, the internet generation of wrestling at this time. Broke kayfabe a lot in his promos. You know, I mean, one of the things I always remember, and this is a great example, is he says, "I'm the greatest on the mic. I'm the greatest in that ring," and I'm just thinking, why would a wrestler say they're the greatest on the mic? I mean, you'd never hear a boxer say, "I'm the greatest on the mic," because that doesn't really matter. That's just an extra. I mean, and for me, that breaks the kind of reality of this situation, because we know in professional wrestling you have to be good on the mic, but you shouldn't have to say that, because effectively speaking, that shouldn't matter. All that should matter in a sport in which you're fighting each other, and whoever wins via the rules is the victor, and that's what you're going for. There should be no reason to say you're good on the mic. But nonetheless, the promo was brilliant. It was entertaining as hell. Comes out, that he's gonna leave the WWE with the championship, and this is the one time I'm not giving John Cena props. Let me put it that way. I'm not giving John Cena props, because again, between the two of them, I found this entertaining, but I find it unsustainable. Okay, so yes, this was good at the time, 2011, Summer of Punk. It was great viewing to watch. But at the same time, I was like, this is unsustainable. You can't sustain talking about wrestling and the reality of wrestling. Kind of talking about the reality, not going all the way through talking about the reality of wrestling, but talking about the reality of wrestling without people being like, okay, well, you're just basically saying this is fake. So, the whole idea is to play these characters. It's like a TV show. It will be like a TV show, and somebody who has a lot of fans is not getting paid more than the guy who is the main star of the TV show. And the guy on the TV show starts saying, well, I've got loads more fans than you, and I'm better in comedic timing, and I've had more dramatic moments this season, and I deserve the place that you're at. I should be the star of this TV show. But you're like, okay, well then you're making it out to be. Is there no other way that you can get to John Cena without doing this? But don't get me wrong, I really just don't want to. It was entertaining as hell during that whole period. And CM Punk brought it. John Cena, I'm gonna say he brought it, and I mean there were times where I felt John Cena kind of owned CM Punk in his own way. I think CM Punk maybe underestimated John Cena a little bit, because John Cena comes out and is the company man and does his crappy promos about Star Wars and stuff like that, and maybe CM Punk saw this and saw it on TV and thought, oh, this guy's just a pushover, but it showed, to me at least, that John Cena actually really knows what he's doing, which, surprisingly enough, pisses me off more. That this guy literally can be, I don't think he'll ever be on The Rock or Stone Cold or even Mr. Perfect's level or something like that. But it showed me that this guy knows what he's doing, and he's purposely coming on my TV, spewing bullshit. And I think that added fuel to the fire, that this guy can actually be somewhat entertaining, and he's just not. And that added to CM Punk's position, that he's just the company boy, bitch boy, who's going to go out and say whatever, the creative want him to say. So, you have all these intense moments between them, and finally, CM Punk has the match with him. John Laurinaitis and Vince McMahon come out. They try and do the second Montreal screw job, but John Cena comes out saying, no, I'm going to beat him fair and square. And CM Punk beats him, walks away with the championship. After they get Alberto Del Rio, um, after they get Alberto Del Rio to try and catch him his Money in the Bank. It was all brilliant setup, and then you have the thing after with him and Triple H, where he's owning Triple H, where Kevin Nash comes in. It was all just a lovely feud, because at the center of it was this dichotomy, this between John Cena and CM Punk, and I would say in a way it was the poor man's version of The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. But the only thing that made me enjoy this, I wouldn't say slightly more, because I can't believe I put Stone Cold and The Rock after these guys. I should have put them before. But the only thing I'd say I enjoyed about this is that how much you got to learn about what was going on in the back. And I love that stuff. I love the documentaries and whatever about the wrestling, and just to find out who these people are in real life, and you've got that sense of that in this feud, and that's the only reason. I mean, that I really enjoyed that whole thing. Wrestling matches were okay. I don't rate those wrestling matches as highly as some people do. I think the psychology was all off. I think. I think CM Punk definitely and John Cena have a real chemistry together. But hey, I mean, it was good. It was good. So that is number 9. Man, that's high for that feud. As I said, I made the list and it was kind of interchangeable, but I just that's pretty high for that feud actually. But anyway, number 8 is Kurt Angle versus Triple H. What a fucking fantastic feud. And I was going to do a whole video on this actually, because for me, Triple H, his ego got in the way of probably the best feud since Stone Cold and The Rock and Vince McMahon. That was the best feud of 2000. It got an award for being the best feud. It was voted as such as the best feud, even above Rock and Triple H. Here's the problem now. Triple H did not want Kurt Angle to rise to his level. And because of Triple H's stupidity, he kept going after The Rock. You could see by the writing he wanted to be looked at on the same level as The Rock. He didn't want to be looked at on the same level as Kurt Angle. And he therefore sabotaged this feud between him and Kurt Angle, which Triple H had better chemistry and was more entertaining with Kurt Angle than he's been in his whole career. They had such great chemistry together. They had as good chemistry together as The Rock and Stone Cold. They were like peanut butter and jam. Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, hero, suck up, cheesy, goofy, verse Triple H, the game, the cerebral assassin, the badass, that he was trying to portray. And for once, somebody was accentuating those good points, and kind of, Kurt Angle both played the bitch, but he wasn't scared of them, and they were kind of like, at each other's throats, and they were great as equals. And you get some great promos and some great matches out of this, But you can tell that Triple H was booking the endings to make himself look better. The match between himself, Kurt Angle, and The Rock was great. He basically concussed Kurt Angle by going on so and I to this day I think if it wasn't intentional, I think there was some malice behind the way the table collapsed, so it's not his fault really. But Kurt Angle was supposed to be there through that whole match. But again, it added to the thing because Stephanie comes out, and this was the whole focal point. It was Stephanie McMahon and Kurt Angle. She kind of thought Kurt Angle was cute, which Triple H hated, and was extremely jealous of Kurt Angle and was trying to like fuck up his rise to ascension. This not in the show itself. And then Stephanie McMahon kept helping Kurt Angle, who went on like kind of like Goldberg style streak, but an inverted form where he was just a pussy guy. He's playing a chicken shit heel, but somehow he'd always win. So she was fucking up his. Triple H was trying to fuck up his streak. So it marinated quite nicely in the beginning, where there was not a real conflict between directly him and Triple H. And then eventually it got to a point where, in fact, Triple H was, the where Triple H and Kurt Angle and The Rock were all in the championship picture towards the end of the year. And as I said, performed brilliantly by Kurt Angle. I think Triple H, for once, had that person who he could really play off, and with the jealousy aspect of, with Stephanie McMahon, they were really playing well off each other. And I think this could have made both of these guys into the stars that Stone Cold and The Rock were in their feud. And I just want to finish off by saying, you really have to know who you have chemistry with, I believe, in the wrestling business, who naturally complements the character you are. And I don't think Triple H really understands that. And I think it's unfortunate because he could have been a lot more entertaining than he has been. He's constantly wanting to feud with the big name guys. He's constantly wanting to feud with The Rock. He constantly wants to feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. When it suited him, in between he attaches himself to the next hottest acts. Whether it have been Mick Foley before he was about to leave. Mick Foley had become a real big name after he did that thing off the cage with The Undertaker. He always wants to attach himself to that big name. And now look at it. I mean, when you think of top feuds in WWE history, I know they say, he gets in there with The Rock a lot of the time. It's like The Rock and Triple H. No one really thinks of that. Anytime you think of a feud with The Rock or Stone Cold, you think The Rock, Stone Cold. Basically, he didn't have the chemistry with Stone Cold because they were too similar, and it just didn't mesh well. And he had the chemistry with The Rock, but that doesn't matter because it's totally eclipsed by the fact that there was this Stone Cold Rock feud. So he's never going to be remembered as having this great feud. It's the same with him and Mick Foley. Mick Foley, The Undertaker, great chemistry. That's always going to be remembered over, Triple H and Mick Foley. And here was his opportunity with Kurt Angle to have somebody who was perfect for him. And he sabotaged it himself to go off their championship against Jericho, who he had zero. He had less chemistry with him than he had with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had zero chemistry with Chris Jericho. So, it just goes to show that Triple H is sometimes his own worst enemy, and now he has to rely on convincing a bunch of 8-year-olds or people too young to kind of remember that he had these great feuds in the Attitude Era with The Rock and with Mick Foley and all of this stuff, when it wasn't actually that great. I mean, the Mick Foley thing was great because of the matches, but they were nowhere as intense as the ones with Undertaker and Mick Foley. So it always seems like, okay, whoever it is he feuded with, he wasn't the guy who really, made the feud. It was either Mankind who made the feud, or it was The Rock who made the feud. Whoever he was feuding with, it always seemed like, it was that guy who's making the feud. With Kurt Angle, he really did miss a great opportunity to cement his legacy. You know, in 2000 they were hot as hell. They were hotter than fire. That feud, and it should have culminated in a WrestleMania match. That was the only way to finish that feud. You know, it should have. And it doesn't matter if Kurt Angle got. You know, they could have done it if he didn't want to see Kurt Angle with Stephanie. It could have been like you just cut to seeing Stephanie and Kurt Angle go into a room or something like that. And the same thing in 2002. They could have amplified that feud a lot more to you know, so it's messing with Triple H's mind at first, but then Triple H gets over it and finally, you know, starts fucking with Jericho and Kurt Angle, and it would have been one of the greatest feuds of all time. Now it's not even really mentioned that much, and it should be. It should be because it was classic TV every week. The one time I looked forward to hearing Triple H's music was during that feud because I knew, okay, something interesting is going to happen here. So yeah, that's my number 8 greatest feud. Number 7 is The Rock versus Mankind. God damn, did these guys have fucking chemistry together. Now, this is always going to be overlooked as one of the greatest feuds, mainly because they went on to be such a great tag team, you know, together. It was so obvious that they had chemistry from this feud between The Rock and Mick Foley. Such great chemistry. Oh my God. Really good. You know, the Rock and Sock connection just goes to show that, and that's probably what's more celebrated between The Rock and Mankind being together than their actual feud together, because, oh man, it was something to behold. You have two great minds, great comedy, great comedic timing. You've got this underdog in Mankind. He's the battered and bruised and you know, veteran versus the young stud, you know, who the WWE is trying to push as the corporate champion. It begins with a Survivor Series where it was kind of lame. Once again, WWE, they try and you know, they try and push these same ideas down people's throats over and over. And once something works, they're like, oh yeah, let's do it again and again and again. You know, and they try and recreate the Montreal Screwjob, except this time it's Mankind. So, you know, Rock gets Mankind in the sharpshooter. They ring for the bell, and then Rock becomes the corporate champion. As soon as that happens, dude, does everything fucking kick off, man. The Rock and Mankind go on some of the funniest segments, taking the piss out of each other. You know, everything from Mankind stealing $100,000 of The Rock, and then holding that $100,000 hostage, and then giving money to the crowd. You know, saying he's spent a little bit, $25,000, but you know, maybe he's put IOUs to The Rock. For the $25,000 that he'd already spent. And then The Rock, you know, obviously having to give in to Mankind's demands, and you know, eventually they have another championship match. Can't remember which one that was actually. I'm not sure which one that was, but eventually, you know, we have to talk about the I Quit match, which was absolutely a phenomenal execution of an old idea. The idea came from the ECW, between Shane, the franchise Shane Douglas, and versus Mankind, where he first gets handcuffed, and you know, Shane Douglas starts laying into him. I keep thinking Shane McMahon, but Shane Douglas starts laying into him. Go back and watch that match; quite a good match. But that match was so entertaining, with The Rock on the mic, you know, singing what's it, the SmackDown Hotel song, and like just taking the piss out of Mankind on the mic, and then finally, the I Quit. Um, Mankind supposedly screams "I quit," but in fact it was just a recording. Quite obviously, everyone could hear it in the arena. And then Mankind comes out the next day, and he's like, "I didn't remember screaming "I quit." And then they figure out that it was which recording that "I quit" came from. Um, it was from one of Mankind's promos. And so they go into an empty arena match. The empty arena match is awesome. Um, and again, it was just a great feud. I mean, like the feud between them, they just had this wonderful chemistry together that ultimately culminates in them becoming a tag team, and then even eclipsing their feud in terms of how humorous they were, because The Rock is so good at being a comedy act, but Mankind is both good at being a comedy act, but he's good at being off the cuff as well. So some of the one-liners, Mick Foley came up with during their tag team and during their feuds was just great. It was some of the best comebacks you'll ever hear to The Rock. Probably better than even some of Stone Cold's comebacks to The Rock. So yeah, Mankind or Mick Foley did not get shown up in their feud or in their tag team. They were equals, just as equally entertaining as each other. And I always say this, that if it wasn't for Mick Foley, I do not think both the feud with Mick Foley and, finally the tag team with Mick Foley, The Rock would not be as big as he is now. I put my, you know, I put my life on betting that you take that feud and that tag team out of The Rock's career, you wouldn't the Rock probably wouldn't be in movies. The Rock wouldn't have been as over as he was either as the corporate champion. The most entertaining stuff The Rock did as the corporate champion outside of his feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin was Mankind, and Mankind really, really was generous in allowing The Rock to shine during that feud. And hats off to The Rock. The Rock also put over Mankind big time during that feud as well, in a way that Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin never did, and they should have. That even if it was Mick Foley's idea that he was trying to be generous, Triple H should have said, "Look, man, you win one. Win the first one. I'll beat you in the second. Even if you win but make me look strong. Obviously, maybe some accidental win or something. But they should have put over Mankind. He should have put over Mankind for everything Mankind did for Triple H. Um, you know, Triple H just wouldn't have been in that title picture when he was if it wasn't for how strong Mick Foley put him over. So there you go. Number 6 is Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. Oh my god. This was the feud of the fucking century, man. This was so good. It's actually a bit before my time, this coming back into WWE. Not that before my time watching WWE, because I watched it earlier. But watching it, since, and going through all the aspects of this feud and just how intense and real and visceral that this feud was. It's just amazing to see. I mean, I don't really know what to say about it. It was just two dogs going at each other off the charts. And, it was one of those things where the promos were just as intense as the matches. And you really got this sense from the performance by both of these guys that they fucking hated each other. Again, another example, Stone Cold is a brilliant mind when it comes to wrestling. He knows who he has chemistry with. He knew he didn't have chemistry with Mankind, so they cut that feud between him and Mankind up very quickly. With him and Dude Love, they didn't have the chemistry together. It just didn't work. He knew he didn't have that much chemistry with Triple H, even though Triple H was trying to push himself on Stone Cold Steve Austin. But he knew where he had chemistry, and he knows, and he says it himself. Bret Hart and The Rock were my greatest opponents. I would add Kurt Angle to that because Kurt Angle and him had real magic chemistry together. But but more so not in the feud, more so when they were doing the comedy segments together, which was kind of the beginning of the feud because they were both fighting over, um, you know, Vince McMahon's affections. But yeah, so I can understand why he said in terms of matches, yeah, definitely it was Bret Hart and you know, and The Rock. But in terms of who he had chemistry with, he has to put, Kurt Angle up there because they were just magic together. But in the same way that The Rock and Mick Foley were magic together. But yeah, so here we go again. You just have these two dogs off the chain. You know that Bret Hart is a hard ass. We all think that this new Stone Cold guy is a badass himself, and there is no sense in which we're talking about equal and opposing forces, polar opposites, one technical, one a brawler, and man, they just tore the house down every single match. It was like a scrap, a fight with good technical spots from Bret Hart, great brawling, blood, guts. It was just intense as fuck. And like some of the times where Stone Cold would just come out of nowhere and start beating down Bret Hart, and just saying, there's never enough punishment I can dole out to Bret Hart. He just hated him, and there was no reason for it. That was the beauty of it. It emphasized that Stone Cold character that he was a part of the new guard, and he was going after this guy who he just felt was everything that opposed him. It was like Superman Lex Luthor, just that perfect dichotomy between the two guys. And then there was the match of all matches, of course. If I were doing top matches of all time, this would probably be my number one match of all time, which was the Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think it was WrestleMania, that match. In fact, yes, it was WrestleMania. 15, I want to say, no, 16, 17 was The Rock. Either 15 or 16, I believe. The match where what I've come to appreciate so much, and I haven't said enough about Bret the Hitman Hart. Oh my God, I love this guy. He's one of my favorites of all time. I can't stand when people come on and call Bret Hart boring, or they don't get Bret Hart. To me, that just says you don't know anything about wrestling. If Bret the Hitman Hart is not one of your top superstars of all time, I don't get you. I don't understand you. That guy was pure entertainment. He knew exactly what to do at exactly the right time, And yes, he was that kind of quintessential, non-charismatic, all-business babyface. But he worked with the right people who would emphasize the passion in him. He was just he's the one guy who was a baby face in most ideal sense of a baby face. Going out, putting the glasses on the kids, handshaking the crowd, and all that. But he was the one baby face who just wasn't annoying. And I can go back and look back at his matches and still wish I was that kid who he put the glasses on. And for him, this quintessential baby face, probably I think a better baby face than Hulk Hogan in terms of actually he can put a match on when he gets into the ring, put on a clinic nearly every time, and he rode so many waves of becoming unpopular and because of going into the 90s or whatever. He drew more than Shawn Michaels, but he drew more money than Shawn Michaels actually, but as the face of the company. But he rode so many waves of like fans turning against him because he wasn't cool anymore. And if I was watching live at the time, there's no way I would have turned my back on Bret the Hitman Hart. And it goes to show because they say that like a lot of Bret Hart's fans are from Europe and from Canada. Like he's massive every time he comes to Europe because I don't know, man. He was so loved in my neck of the woods. And I don't know why, but like he just had this connection with people. I fucking love the guy from like a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, obviously Stone Cold is now one of my favorites. I hate to put him above Bret the Hitman Hart, but I do put him above Bret the Hitman Hart for entertainment value. But at the time, every time I watch that match, I'm all for Bret the Hitman Hart. And so Bret, what I was saying is what was so impressive about that particular feud was Bret Hart planned out that match, right? Not Stone Cold. Bret Hart planned out that match for it to be a double switch. If you don't believe me, go and watch Bret Hart wrestling with shadows. Now, when you see Bret Hart wrestling with shadows, you'll see how he had the cogs turning where he was like, okay, and it was so difficult for him as well, which is, it makes you appreciate him so much more and think of John fucking Cena, because he was a massive, massive hero to people, and he didn't want to be a heel, he didn't want to be a bad guy. And he wrestled with it a lot, but he was like, okay, this is right for business, so I'm going to do it. Stone Cold's majorly over, so he's going to do the double switch. And he planned how that double switch was going to happen, with Stone Cold passing out at the end of the match, and it worked big time. It worked big time. And that's why Stone Cold appreciates Bret Hart so much. It is his greatest opponent, even above The Rock. Even above The Rock, I would say. That is definitely Stone Cold's greatest opponent. They made magic together. Their matches, oh my god. Any younger fan who hasn't seen the Bret Hart Stone Cold feud, go back and watch it. Oof. I cannot believe I put this over Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. These have very little order to them, but Shawn Michaels and Bret the Hitman Hart. I'm going to do this one really quickly because I don't know why I put this here because I actually think some of their matches are overrated. I don't like their Iron Man match. I think the only reason I put this so high is because I think it's one of the greatest rivalries in terms of the story of Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and the insight you get into the business, and the Montreal screw job and stuff like that. The insight you got into the business and the bitterness between them, and how it exposed Shawn Michaels as such a cunt. I don't see anyone. I know Vince McMahon kind of did the right thing, but anyone who thinks that Bret Hart is being a prima donna because of the whole thing with anyone who thinks he's being a prima donna because he didn't want to give up the belt to Shawn Michaels in Canada. I'm just sorry, I don't understand that. I mean, Bret Hart was clearly the guy in the right. Obviously, Shawn Michaels is a complete twat. So many times he's done things to Bret Hart. If you just go and look it up, like, Shawn Michaels and him in the ring at the end of the Iron Man match. When Shawn Michaels finally won the WWF Championship, telling Bret Hart to get out of his ring after he passed the torch over to Shawn Michaels. Like what kind of fucking respect is that? And just all the shit that Shawn Michaels used to do in the back against Bret Hart and against everyone, not just Bret Hart. Trying to sabotage The Rock, trying to sabotage Stone Cold Steve Austin, not wanting to pass over the torch to Stone Cold. So I guess that is why I put this feud so high, because it's just everything I've seen of it since. It's just an interesting story amongst two of the greatest in-ring competitors of all time. I don't want to take anything away from Shawn Michaels' ability in the ring because he was amazing in ring, but Bret Hart still is also. I don't see how anyone can put Shawn Michaels on top of. I mean, okay, he has had some real classic matches. He has, but I don't think Shawn Michaels has ever had a match as good as Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. I would put Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin up against any match of Shawn Michaels. And most of Shawn Michaels' best matches, and I'm not calling Stone Cold a slouch in the ring, but have been up against, real, like it's very, very recent. There was a lot of emotion involved in terms of the storytelling, and it's been up against real ring generals as well, like The Undertaker, who are much better wrestlers. I'm sorry than Stone Cold Steve Austin. Just in terms of pure wrestling, Kurt Angle, Undertaker. I'm trying to think who else. People who can make a mock look good in the ring. Whereas the matches, some of the great matches that Bret Hart has had, some of his greatest matches, are with people who aren't even that. He had a great match with Yokozuna. A fantastic match with Yokozuna. He had fantastic. There's a list that just goes on of. He had a fantastic match against the King Jerry Lawler. I mean, it just goes on. You can go on with the list of the great matches that Bret Hart has had with people who aren't that great workers, or workers that are on his level. Whereas Shawn Michaels, the greatest matches he's had are with workers who are arguably some of the best workers in the industry. So I'm a bit on Bret Hitman Hart side. If you haven't noticed, I'm sorry. I like Bret Hart more. One of my favorites of all time. Anyway, number 4, Jake the Snake versus Macho Man Randy Savage. Again, I haven't got a lot to say about this. I do really like this. I mean, it's two of my favorites. Jake the Snake is one of my favorites of all time. Macho Man Randy Savage is my favorite of all time. It was just one of those things where you have two great promo guys, two great storytellers in a ring, and a great story as well. Macho Man is just about to marry Miss Elizabeth. He's already done the proposal. He's already done the proposal. He's already done the proposal. And they've just been married or something like that. And all you see is Miss Elizabeth open up her gifts, and then a cobra comes out. He actually got a cobra, one of the deadliest snakes, and this pops out of the present, and it's Jake the Snake, and it was on. And from there, you just have a series of really classic promos. You have the famous incident of Jake the Snake getting a snake to bite Macho Man Randy Savage, And one of the things I love about this feud, and why I respect it so much, is it just goes to show how much Macho Man Randy Savage was willing to do to make a match. And the fact he let a snake fight him. I mean, you know, again, R.I.P. Macho Man. The matches were great. Obviously, ring psychologist versus, Jake the Snake versus Macho Man, probably the greatest storyteller in ring of all time. So yeah, great match. Jake the Snake versus Ravishing Rick Rude. Great feud again. I don't know why this is so high, number three. I really didn't think these out. um, I think I put this one in after because I thought, oh, Jake the Snake versus Ravishing Rick Rude needs to be on here. I'm not sure it's the third greatest rivalry of all time. My top two rivalries are my actual top two favorite rivalries, but this one, I'm not sure why it's so high. But Jake the Snake versus Ravishing Rick Rude starts off with Ravishing Rick Rude cutting the great promo. Every week he comes out and gets a lady from the crowd to come out and kiss him, which annoyed the fuck out of everyone. I remember just how, and this is why Ravishing Rick Rude, it was only when I turned to about like 14 and I was like, that, I really started liking the guy. Before I hated his guts, because he was so good at fucking pissing people off. And, as soon as I began liking the heels, I was like, I went through a phase of just liking heels, just generally, like that age of like 14 or something, where I just liked heels if they were heels. But then I started becoming a lot more discerning in the heels I liked. But I remember one of the first heels that I thought, oh, this guy's one of my favorites of all time, was Ravishing Rick Rude. And I remember it was during this particular feud that I was watching. I don't know if it was a rerun or if it was actually at the time I was 14, but looking back at it, I think it must have been a rerun or something. But yeah, Ravishing Rick Rude, he comes out to talk to a woman in the crowd, and he's like, why, haven't if you haven't come here to see the sexiest man in the world, i.e. me, who have you come here to see? And she says, nobody knows who she is. She says, my husband, who is the sexiest man in the world, Jake the Snake Roberts. And then, she he begins to like kind of get in her face and flirtatiously. Jake the Snake Roberts comes running out, jumps him, and then the feud was on. In one of the matches that they were supposed to have, Ravishing Rick Rude comes out with his trousers. He always had a woman or something on his trousers around, the groin or butt area, and he decides to put a picture of Jake the Snake's wife on as an image on his trousers, and he's gyrating, and to the crowd, and you know, obviously, Jake the Snake. Well, not obviously. Jake the Snake comes out, pulls down his trousers, and it's one of those the most R-rated scenes that you'll see in the early age of wrestling. The matches, I can't remember if they were too memorable, but this is why I was going to say the feud for me. They were both they were great matches. I can't even, I don't know why I put this so high, honestly. I think I took one out because I duplicated it. But the matches were good, if I remember correctly. Um, Ravishing Rick Rude is a great worker, and Jake the Snake was always a great psychologist. So I can't, if I remember correctly, I think Jake the Snake is the victor in this feud after everything, but he was still getting Ravishing Rick Rude to the next level, which was facing one of the bigger baby faces in the company. And I haven't said enough about Jake the Snake. I really do. He's one of my favorites of all time as well. Such a good talker. Talk you into, just talk you into the building, like really great. Um, and he was always one of my favorite characters. He was possibly even before I was into heels, and this is just because I saw him as cool. I didn't. It wasn't that. I remember when I wanted the Hulk Hogan toy or the Macho Man toy for Christmas. The other toy that I really wanted was Jake the Snake. And in my mind, I wasn't really thinking it over when you're a kid. I obviously just gravitated towards Jake the Snake. I obviously just thought he was cool. I didn't care if he was a bad guy or good guy. And then when you see him later on in life, you just realize why you gravitated to him so much. He was just awesome. Just really, really cool guy, cool character. Um, Great intro music as well. One of my favorite intros songs of all time. Next one is the number two. This is one of my favorite rivalries, and it's because of the matches. I'm going to say just straight out. Um, it was very entertaining as well. But it's Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar. Um, I'm trying to remember everything. Like it's hard to remember this one in order because this one went on for such a long time. They had like about four matches or five, I believe. It could have even been. Yeah, I can't remember how many matches these guys had because it went on for so long. There were so many permutations of this feud. There was parts where Brock Lesnar was the heel. There was parts where Kurt Angle was the heel. I mean, I remember the part where Kurt Angle was the heel leading up to WrestleMania, which was fantastic. But actually, that WrestleMania match they had, which was almost picture perfect, was not their best match. They had better matches. As good as that match is, that is not their best match. And I think one where Kurt Angle won was actually a better match. And Brock Lesnar again is one of my big like I love that guy, man. He's such a fucking demon. He speaks English. Although in respect to Brock Lesnar, I have to do something to because this guy, what does he look like these days, man? He looks like the guy from the Goonies. The fucking. If you guys have watched the Goonies, you'll probably know who I'm talking about. Um, what the fuck is his name? Oh, man, I can't remember the fucking guy's name. It's like he's the big giant guy who is Chuck's friend from the Goonies. And he's even screaming like him these days. He does the he did the F5 or whatever to this guy, and he just screamed like he was some fucking prehistoric animal. It was the weirdest scream. But it was supposed to be like an animalistic kind of roar, but it was even scarier. I think I'd be more scared if he did. I would be less scared if he did a manly roar than the roar he actually did. It was like like some new animal. It was a Brock Lesnar. Oh, there goes a Brock Lesnar in the wild. But yeah, I had to do that for you guys, man. That last Raw episode where he does the F5 to Mark Henry and does that scream was fucking intense. But yeah, he's one of my. I think he's amazing. He's such a beast. I mean, what amazing genetic specimen, and you have him up against Kurt Angle, and you knew good things was going to happen, and they certainly did. They did not disappoint. I don't think any one of their matches was disappointing. Um, if you look for a near perfect match score of 5-star matches every single time two guys got into the ring, Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar is that 5-star all the way classic. you know. And then the entertainment value was mainly added by Kurt Angle. Did some humorous spots when he was with Team Angle. Again, it's about chemistry. Knowing when you have chemistry. You have these two wrestlers with amateur backgrounds. It was almost like you know, Brock Lesnar was the super Kurt Angle. You know, Brock Lesnar was Kurt Angle 2.0. You know, it was like, um, like Terminator 2, where you have the original Terminator, and then you have just this much more sophisticated version of the Terminator, and that's what Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar was. It was like you've got this wrestling god, Olympic champion, but then you've got the next amateur sensation who is just built like a brick shithouse versus, and just let them at it, and again, so much good stuff happens when the two guys facing each other respect each other, you know, um, and that's why you've got great rivalries between The Rock and Stone Cold, great rivalries between Rock and Mankind, and great rivalry between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle. They respected each other, and you didn't notice it at the time how much they actually respected each other. Um, so when these are the two most accomplished athletes in WWE history, easily. UFC collegiate, wrestling champ on a national level in Brock Lesnar. Kurt Angle won nearly every, a wrestling award known to fucking man in the United States, leading up to his Olympic win on the global level. So you've got the two greatest athletes in the business just going off against each other. And as I said, yeah, Kurt Angle was providing a lot of entertainment in trying to screw, Brock Lesnar out of getting the championship. He was always coming up with some new way of fucking with Brock Lesnar, so that he, so that he wouldn't win the championship off him, and then it culminates in that dream match at WrestleMania, where Kurt Angle headlines WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar, and man, was that fucking awesome. It really, really was. And Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle, definitely one of the greatest. I think the thing that does that match so much is that shooting star press by Brock Lesnar. You know, and the respect the two guys had for each other, to that they were both injured at the end of the match, and then they both go up and hug each other, even though technically speaking Kurt Angle was supposed to be the heel in this match. He puts up Brock Lesnar's hand, and you can see the vulnerability in Brock Lesnar for once. He seems like an absolute machine, and to see him vulnerable was just amazing. It was one time where I was like, yeah, that was the right thing for Kurt Angle to do, pass the torch over to the younger guy, and he's always been good like that. That is what Kurt Angle does, and I respect him a lot for that. One of the top guys who's always willing to put the young guy over properly, clean, Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar is number 2. And coming in at number 1 is Ultimate Warrior versus Macho Man Randy Savage. I have mad respect for Ultimate Warrior. He's not one of necessarily my favorites of all time. He maybe comes into the top 25 on the lower end of the spectrum, but I have mad respect for him. I hate what WWF has done, or WWE has done to his career, and the way they've kind of, framed the Ultimate Warrior's career as he is just this total bastard. And they've gone to court, right? They've gone to court. So anything that they say about, Ultimate Warrior, be very mindful, because they've already gone to court and settled this, and WWE lost in court. They couldn't prove any of the allegations they made with Ultimate Warrior on that video, and they have sued for slander. Ultimate Warrior won, okay? So don't believe all that fucking bullshit by the WWF. Yeah, Ultimate Warrior was not the greatest worker in ring either. Very, very true. but neither was fucking Hulk Hogan. Well, okay, Hulk Hogan was actually a better worker than he came across as, but the idea was not, there were many big guys apart from Ultimate Warrior who were actually worse than Ultimate Warrior. George the Animal Steel, who's in the Hall of Fame. A number of different workers were just not that good. Um, Earthquake, Typhoon, fuck, a lot of big names. A lot of them were not good workers back. In fact, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I believe he's in the Hall of Fame as well. One of the worst characters ever. Sergeant Slaughter, one of the worst characters ever, is in the Hall of Fame, and it's celebrated as one of the greatest of all time. Bullshit! Sergeant Slaughter is one of the greatest of all time. The only time he was ever any good was when he teamed up with the Iron Sheik, and that was mainly, I think, because of the Iron Sheik. That was his best run as a heel. Okay, it's nonsense. Uh, there are a lot of people who were not good workers back in the day. Ultimate Warrior could be carried through to a good match. You had to put him against a good worker, and he could be carried through to a decent match. He had decent matches with Ravishing Recruit. He had decent. I think he had a quite decent match with Mr. Perfect, and possibly was it? He had a decent match with Hulk Hogan, which goes to show Hulk Hogan is actually a good worker. He's a better worker than people give him credit for. Um, Hulk Hogan is actually he's a fairly good worker. He just, if you go back to before he became Hulkamania Hulk Hogan, he just knew that was what was in at the time. Big man, simple, charge up, fight against the odds. He knew that was what was in. And that's why he could work a match. His ring psychology was great. He could work a match so that you were completely invested in that match. Nearly all of Hulk Hogan's matches were like that. You just were completely invested in him as a persona. So he didn't need to do all these fancy kind of things to kind of work a match. He just worked the match in his way, in a way that worked at that time. When he realized that wasn't working anymore, he switched over and became Hollywood Hulk Hogan and went into his heel mode. And by then he was fairly old. You're judging the guy off. I mean, even look at the match with The Rock, the way he worked that match. I mean, and that wasn't The Rock. That was Hulk Hogan working that match. He stole the show. Okay. Yeah. So I'll keep going into different people, but the Ultimate Warrior versus Macho Man. I'm going to tell you why this was such a good feud. One, you've got two crazy people going back and forth in their promos together. And then it finally culminates in whoever loses this match at WrestleMania has to end their career. Okay? Perfect setup. For some time now, Macho Man has been a heel. He came in, was interfering with Ultimate Warrior's matches, hit him with the scepter. And he's like, ooh, yeah, when I hit the Ultimate Warrior with the scepter, yeah, I felt the power, and he was doing some crazy promos on Ultimate Warrior, and Ultimate Warrior coming back doing equally bizarre promos. And I loved Ultimate Warrior's promos. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Ultimate Warrior's promos are unforgettable. And that is what a good promo is. That's what a good promo is. Full stop. So not, oh, I don't understand it. I know what's he saying. That doesn't matter. Half the time, and I love the way people will say this. They'll be like, oh, Macho Man did great promos, but Ultimate Warrior didn't do great promos. How does that work out? Because Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, half of his promos were you couldn't understand them either. How's he so good at promos? Yet Ultimate Warrior isn't good at promos. It's all bullshit. So, as I was saying, Ultimate Warrior, he hits him with the scepter, costs him the world championship. Actually, costs him the WWE championship. From I think Sergeant Slaughter beat him. Ultimate Warrior. And then Ultimate Warrior, goes into this feud with Macho Man, and it's at the end it culminates in, as I said, one of them will have to lose their career if they lose this match, and it comes into the WrestleMania. And just a little bit more background, Macho Man had been, he was being managed by Sherry rather than Miss Elizabeth now. And for a long time, that was part of integral to his heel turn, was that he, basically gives up Elizabeth, and he's being, his valet into now sensational Sherry. Um, and so they come into the match together. Sherry's career is on the line as well as Macho Man, and it's them versus Ultimate Warrior. And what a match! Okay, clearly this is probably my. I mean, outside of Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle, I would say. But Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle was more the series of matches. If I was going to say my favorite match of all time, the best work match, because Macho Man is my favorite as well, and you know that he planned this match out so meticulously, and everything he wanted out of this match came true. Everything he wanted, and that just shows the genius of Macho Man Randy Savage. So, and to do it with somebody who isn't even that great a worker as well, to bring him to bring Ultimate Warrior to a 5-star classic match, just goes to show. I mean, and not, taking nothing away from Ultimate Warrior, when he knew it was right, he wasn't a slouch necessarily. He knew how to work the crowd. But yeah, so you've got, and I love the way this. If I'm right, if I'm correct, I believe this match was left off the Ultimate Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, or whatever. Um, uh, Stupid DVD or stupid fucking documentary that WWE put out. It's entertaining as hell, but it's just fucking bullshit, man. But anyway, yeah, so culminates in this match. Bobby the Brain Heenan does a great sell job on the whole situation. Sensational Ferry is his valet. Then you've got Miss Elizabeth is sitting in the crowd, and Bobby the Brain Heenan brings your attention to it, and just that great line of, oh, she's here to see her. She's a sadist. She's here to see Macho Man lose. And then the story going into, and this is one of those things where it's like a story, a film. Like the story going into the match, was on one side you've got Macho Man with Sherry, and then on the other side you've got the Ultimate Warrior losing confidence in himself. He's lost the WWF Championship. He's not been on the roll that he's been on as of recent, and he needs to call on his warriors halfway through the match because he's hit, Macho Man with his finishing move twice, and Macho Man is kicked out, and he just doesn't believe it. He can't believe, and I mean, this is just a pitch perfect match. If you go through it bit by bit, the fact that Ultimate Warrior comes out and he doesn't run to the ring, he walks. He never walks. He's always run to the ring. And that was amazing. Everyone's like, "What the fuck's going on with Ultimate Warrior?" And then you go in to the spot where Macho Man hits Ultimate Warrior with 6 elbows, off the top rope, and it doesn't take out Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior kicks out on 2. So then Macho Man doesn't know what's going on. Then Ultimate Warrior hits, Macho Man with several of his finishing moves, and that doesn't take Macho Man out. So these 4 finishes really add to the ambience of the match. And then, Ultimate Warrior's giving up on himself and he's talking to the spirits, talking to the warriors. What can I do to take out Macho Man? And then finally he figures it out. And then, he kind of beats Macho Man. And then there's the end segment. So he's beaten Macho Man. He puts his foot on, Macho Man. He asked him, and Macho Man said, that's cool to do. And then, puts over Ultimate Warrior in a big way. And great again because you could see the mutual respect. Ultimate Warrior with Macho Man. Again, there's that mutual respect, knowing who is money, knowing who you'll make money with. And this is something Vince McMahon has to take fucking control sometimes, because it doesn't seem to me that he steps in enough against some of clique members with their egos to say, look, fuck you, you're sticking to this storyline. You don't give a fuck what you think, But knowing who you make money with is very, very important in the wrestling industry. And Ultimate Warrior and fucking Macho Man were money together. So you've got the end segment. Macho Man has lost, and he's grounded. Ultimate Warrior's practically knocked him out. And Sherry's like, oh my fucking god, what have I done managing this guy? And now I haven't got a career. She comes in, starts putting the boots to Macho Man because of this. And so Macho Man is, holding his ribs, holding his stomach, because she's just going wild on him. Sensational Sherry's going wild on him. And finally, Miss Elizabeth can't take it anymore. And she comes into the ring. And she fights off Sensational Sherry, and then the referees separate them. And Macho Man finally gets up as Miss Elizabeth is trying to, pick him up. And, it's been months or whatever since they've been together. And, Macho Man turns around and he's like, he thinks that it was Miss Elizabeth putting the boots to him. The referee lets him in on it. And Macho Man doesn't know what to do. The referee lets him in on the fact that Sensational Sherry was the one who was actually putting the boots to him. Macho Man doesn't know what to do. He's looking to the crowd, trying to figure out, how should I feel about this? And then finally, he hugs Miss Elizabeth, and the whole, crowd is in tears. Everyone watching is in tears. They get back together. Pomp and Circumstance comes on loud. And what a beautiful moment. It was just a beautifully told story from beginning to end. I implore anyone who hasn't seen that match, go back and see that match. That is why Macho Man is the greatest of all time. He knew, he planned all of it. All of it. Brought somebody who usually puts on 2-star matches to a 5-star match. Okay? No one does it better than Macho Man Randy Savage. The best of all time. R.I.P. Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth. Like, subscribe, and any other videos that you want me to do on, I will do a video on. I'm gonna do top 5. I don't know if it's going to be worst feuds or overrated feuds, but it was one of my subscribers asked me to do it, so I'm going to do it. So it's going to be either top 5 underrated or top 5 worst feuds. I can't really, because the problem with doing worst feuds is that I don't remember the worst feuds because they were so bad. So I'm going to have to rack my mind on that one a bit. So as I said, this was the top 20 feuds of all time, in my opinion. A lot of them are underrated. I hope you enjoyed the list. And I hope I haven't gone on too long, but and I hope some of you guys, if you want to, join me on these conversations. I'm always going to broadcast live, so yeah, you can join me, and we can have a chat about any of these topics that I bring up. So yeah, I've got a couple more I need to do. I need to do about something about another one of my subscribers asked me to do a great question about ROH. Um, what if the big five companies were all working now? Which would be really great for the wrestling industry, I believe. Um, yeah, so I've got that to do. I don't know if there was another question, but I will get around to all of your questions that you asked me. And thanks very much for listening. Goodbye.